Hello, and welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. My name is Richie Richie of the MHRT Network. Over to that side is Alex Gibbons of Arrowhead Addict. Check out his articles all throughout that site with some great insight for those Kansas City Chiefs. Down directly below here is Coach Defense of the Lockdown Defense podcast, NBA, NFL, and other random sports stuff sometimes.
Gaming, e-gaming,
e-gaming,
and dodgeball.
And dodgeball.
Don't forget pickleball. Those pickleball games get intense.
All right.
That's the fastest rising sport in the country now.
I'm saying,
Yeah.
get it. I gotta get it on the ground level.
I see a lot of people playing it. Not myself.
I do.
But
Not me, but I see a lot of people playing it.
I got whole bars now that are like pickleball centric. You know?
Oh,
like,
really?
Like, yeah, there's a huge one in KC that's like big time. It built a bunch of pickleball courts and it's just people just flock there.
Oh, okay.
Drink
it's kind of like Top Golf where they just go there specifically to do that.
Everyone's doing a Top Golf thing now. I saw they're about to have a like baseball one and then like basketball where it's just like a hoop. You just have your own little bay.
Well, if they like got to organize batting cages where I can drink and hit baseballs, I'm down for that.
Right?
I'm down for that. I sign me up for that.
I've seen one that it was like a simulator, like it just shot the ball up, out of the ground and you hit it and then it like, fake tracks where you're hitting it to.
Right.
I don't know if I'd be down for that, but you give me like real field.
I need to see where it goes. Yeah,
I need to gone forever.
There you go.
So we got an interesting show where we're gonna not talk about baseball, but
or pickleball for that matter.
Or pickleball for that matter. Yes.
They're done.
Now, in fairness, there will be talk of beer because beer and football go together, perfectly.
And handily.
Yeah, pretty much. And so everyone who's listening tonight, I want to know what you're drinking. Leave those comments down below or in the chat. I want to hear some interesting things. Only real answers, please. I don't want nonsense. But anywho, guys, we got a great show. We're going to go over OTAs for each of our teams, where we're at and all that good stuff. We may or may not have a Raiders guest joining us in place of captain tonight to kind of go over the Raiders kind of, sort of thing. And we might delve into some rookies if we have time near the end of the show to kind of
avatars going.
Now, which color Gatorade? That does matter.
Yeah,
it does matter.
Not be that
matters. Like that's
psycho. Watch him be like lime cucumber. It's my favorite.
Listen,
I'd be like, oh,
the only acceptable time in this world to be a colorist is when they talk about Gatorade. you can be discriminatory when it comes to Gatorade because all Gatorade is not created equal.
Okay, that's an acceptable answer.
Yes.
That's an acceptable answer.
We'll allow it.
Yes.
We'll allow it.
Yeah. So tonight in the boot, I have Muskoka Brewery Craft Lager, a local brewery up here from Canada. If you guys recognize the name Muskoka, that's where all the really wealthy people have all those cottages like Goldie Hawn and Robert Redford and all those other movie stars. They have those like stupid expensive cottages up there. They're talking like $20-30 million. It's just stupid. But they have a couple breweries up that way. Great beer. Highly recommend it. Of course, no one here is from Canada, so I just get to, rub salt in the wound.
Sounds nice.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to take the butcher's word for it on this one.
And unlike the American beer, we like alcohol in it. So,
Got a shot?
Yeah. But anyways, guys, great show. I'm going to throw over to Alex and go over the Chiefs. Obviously, with some crossover news this past week with Frank Clark.
Yeah.
But we're going to go over to you with regards to OTAs, thoughts, players, perhaps even concerns. Maybe a good approach to kind of talk about this sort of thing too, in terms of what you've heard from OTAs or maybe what you haven't heard, which may actually be concerning.
Yeah. So the OTAs were I think earlier this month or end of May. Then the Chiefs are obviously in the full swing of their mandatory mini camp right now. I'd say the biggest thing, I mean, outside of like the usual coach speech and like the guys you want to hear getting praised, the biggest thing's just been kind of the tracking of Chris Jones. Hasn't been at any of these sessions, right? And this is the time of year when people start not showing up for money, and that snowballs into a way bigger thing than it needs to be. I mean, as far as what I've read on on my insider scoopage, here's my own assessment. I mean, it seems that they've been trying to get a deal done, and I haven't seen anything to think that that's not in the mindset of the front office and Chris Jones. But I'd say it's kind of an alarming thing, because I feel like there's usually one big player, and then it kind of starts a domino effect of a few more, and teams like don't want to pay. And we've already seen like DeAndre Hopkins go and Dalvin Cook, and I just, I think the longer this kind of lingers around, like the worse it's going to get. So, just kind of watching that. As far as it doesn't seem like he's showing up. So we'll see what happens with fines and if they work something out. And I know Biggie Bronco seeing rumors that they might trade him, which, like obviously that stuff's going to start coming around. Okay.
There you go. There you go.
Like, hey.
Way to go, Airbud.
Yeah, put a Raiders hat on him. He can fill in.
Yeah.
He runs a great post. We've been working on it. But yeah, I mean, in terms of what's going on right now in Chiefs Kingdom, I mean, that's obviously the biggest news. It's your best defender, pretty much one of the best pass rushers, and just full, pressure creators in the league. So you obviously don't want them to not work something out or potentially moving on because of an issue with money. I mean, we saw that kind of play out with Tyreek Hill, and yeah, that ended up working out. But it's one thing to get rid of a receiver when you got Patrick Mahomes. You can't really get rid of the face of your defense, especially when you've counted on them for so long to kind of create a lot of what they do on that side of the ball. So I think that they'll get something done, but like I said, the longer it goes, the more it kind of snowballs. And then, outside of that, just the kind of monitoring of the people that had off-season, surgeries and things. So like Pacheco hasn't been participating in anything, hasn't been in anything, but he's been rehabbing for, I think a hand, like shoulder injury kind of played through. A couple other players coming back from ACLs that were, big time role players in the past. So just kind of seeing those guys come back healthy and how they work into the fold. But that's kind of the biggest news this time of the year is someone wanting more money or someone wanting out. And unfortunately, the Chiefs are dealing with one of those narratives. So, I hope it doesn't become both, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Interesting. So, I mean, I guess the what if game then is, all right, so he leaves. Where does that leave you? Yeah, like where's that leave you, right? I mean, my gut reaction is the exact same as yours. Like that ain't good.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. You would imagine they get a pretty decent trade package of something. So, but I think that would be more of future draft picks and building ahead. So, I don't know what would happen with that. Obviously, getting rid of a huge part of their D-line presence and just overall pass rush, pressures been part of their whole game plan. So, I mean, that's basically like, taking Aaron Donald off of the Rams or any of these great, like TJ Watt off of the Steelers. You can't really come back from that. So, like that's why I don't think that it's really going to turn into any more of a story. It's just, this is sort of the like semantics of getting to the point they want to, is it like, saying, hey, I'm not going to show up. Like, I know you're going to pay me, but I want more money. And they're like, yeah, we get you want more money, but we're going to find you. And then they eventually work it out. So that's how I think it'll happen, because like they really can't get rid of him, especially if they want to continue kind of the mindset's been to replenish the roster but stay competitive.
Right.
You know, so like they're not going to be getting rid of the second rated interior, you know, D-line player in the league. So
yeah. So are there any other standouts that you've really heard of in terms of players, like guys that you are, even guys that you might be surprised about?
Yeah, so I'd say the like I said, you know, the kind of the usual guys you want to hear getting praised have been getting praised. One of those being Sky Moore, obviously the second year wide receiver, you know, second round pick last year. Didn't really get too much into the fold, but you know, it's Andy Reid's offense and how he does things. It's I think historically notorious that you know, rookie offensive players, especially receivers, don't really get too into his scheme. So, you know, he's getting a lot of praise coming into year two, especially given, you know, moving on from Juju and so far not really picking anyone else up that's on paper better than him to, you know, eat up some of the target share. So, I mean, going into this year with pretty lofty and high expectations and seems to be meshing with Mahomes pretty well up to this point. I'd say the biggest, not really surprised, but I mean, kind of a surprise is undrafted rookie running back, Deneric Prince out of Tulsa. He's like a speed demon, you know, like just a kind of a freak athlete. It's a little undersized, but obviously went undrafted, but I'd say not a huge surprise because the Chiefs did give him like a pretty fat guaranteed signing bonus for an undrafted guy of like 40, 50K, which I mean is not fat for in terms of the league, but for someone who's not getting drafted, that's, I mean, a pretty big investment. And, you know, he's been getting a lot of praise of working into not only special teams as an athlete, speedy running back, but, you know, in the passing game. And you kind of see Andy Reid do this almost every year. He finds some freak athlete running back and kind of tries to implement him. And, you know, how he did with like Brian Westbrook and stuff in the past, that kind of put him out more in a slot position and make him a passing threat. And, you know, he seems to be kind of meshing into that role well, at least in OTAs, as far as you can assess that. So I think those are kind of the two biggest ones going into the, you know, full force of the off season to see if they kind of live up to the hype so far.
Interesting. Well, I mean, that's an Andy Reid special, though.
Yeah, right.
Like that's literally that's kind of what he does, right? Belichick takes randos that you have never heard of on defense and makes them into, you know, people, yeah, guys that you actually know their name, right? Like, you know, you see guys and they fit perfectly into that scheme. It's like, you know, perfect plan, right? And Andy Reid is almost like the offensive version of that, where he has a few position groups and a few types of guys that he always seems to be able to pick out of the lineup, if you will, and put them out on the field and just absolutely hit it out of the park.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of been his MO, right? And he always, and especially lately, they've obviously made a big focal point to invest the draft capital in defensive players. And then you in turn kind of, I think that's with the mindset of like, hey, you know, we got the best offensive mind in the league, best quarterback in the league. Why don't we just let them go find some freak athletes from like Utah State, you know, Tech and see if we can get one of them to work out. They're like, yeah, we can do that. Because it's like every year they always, especially running backs, right? Like there's always a running back from a small school every year that's like really, they're really hyped up, and you go watch this film and you're like, oh, this guy could be like a perfect for Andy Reid. Like they're always like Darren Sproles type players. I mean, none of them have really panned out all that much to this point, but then you get your Pacheco's and stuff, right? That they find later in the draft and make them work out. So I think going into year two with those guys, you know, that have kind of been given a year exposure into the system, and you know and you saw that they, you know, consciously made a choice to not upgrade someone better than them who's already been in the league. I think
Yeah.
those two are poised to really kind of break out this year. So, I'd say DZ in terms of who's fantasy relevant. I don't know outside of Travis Kelce. That's all you need to know.
Right. That's only short shot. That's only short shot.
Yeah.
Everything else is by committee.
Don't take Pacheco. Yeah. Don't take the defense.
No, you don't do that either.
No.
Don't do that to yourself either.
Until proven otherwise, it's target Kelce and
I'd say Kelce and maybe Tony, because Tony's going to be like, the one that they are wanting to make the wide receiver one. And I think if you go look at, if that is true, you go look at the targets that Juju got. It was, he was clear cut second behind Kelce. Kelce's getting his targets. So, I would think that Tony or maybe Sky Moore as a backup will probably be the two most relevant ones in terms of the receivers. But that's kind of been what they wanted to do with the ball, like on offense, right? Too is be more not unpredictable. Yeah, unpredictable, and you don't really know where they're going. Like they're going to use Kelce, but then you don't know what they're doing in between that. And so that's why last year you see like MVS would pop off for one game and then just be on a milk carton for 4. So that's just kind of this offense.
Well, and Andy Reid last year, in fairness, did a lot more running the football than he's done in years past, which helps tremendously when you actually have a running back like Pacheco who can actually run.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah. I mean that's that's kind of a key to that as well. But nonetheless, I think you did a pretty solid job with Pacheco there, being able to give you that versatility, allow you to not become one-dimensional, and force teams to still respect the run game, even though Andy Reid seems to get more and more allergic to running the ball as the season goes later, which is totally bizarre because most teams do the exact opposite. But Andy Reid seems to almost flip that script a little bit.
Yeah. See, seems to work for him so far.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, with this,
don't fix it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. So, Coach, over to you and the Chargers. Same kind of general, theme. Where are you at? Who you concerned with? What are you liking? What are you not liking? And who popped off in terms of the 2-3 guys that have really turned heads, so to speak.
Yeah, well, I guess the most interesting news and kind of shocked a lot of us on Chargers Twitter is seeing J.C. Jackson on the field doing drills. That was way up ahead of schedule from his injury, patella tendon injury. So we were very, very surprised to see that. I did notice, and just me being the attention to detail person that I am, that it's natural and it's not unexpected, but he did look a little heavier. But that comes naturally when you do have a leg injury that's traumatic as that, and you don't have the ability to run and train as you will. So he did look a little heavy. So I'm sure he wants to get down, shed a few pounds. He looked like, when you're trying to, make weight for boxing or just trying to shed pounds from athletic perspective, you notice people wear more clothes. He had sweatpants on. He had a long sleeve, heavy shirt along with his jersey. So you can tell he's trying to work his way back and get down to the weight he wants to be at.
Ain't nothing skin tight about that outfit.
Right, right.
Situation.
There you go. So heavy sweatpants, heavy shirt, things that make you sweat, right? So I did notice that. So I think that he's trying to get down, to the proverbial playing weight, as if we were boxing, right? Your boxing weight. So he has that to deal with. But I mean, to see him on the field doing drills and moving, he has an appointment with the doctor this week, I think at the end of OTAs to get a final blessing to clear him fully. So hopefully that goes well. And then we'll see him in training camp. But he fully believes in his heart of hearts that he's going to be ready for week 1. So that's good news. If he's truly healthy, no setbacks, no, I'm rushing myself, no, I'm forcing myself, or I'm pushing myself too hard, which could result in another injury if you go too hard too fast, especially with traumatic injuries like he had. So I think that we will be fine. A few weeks into the season, he didn't suit up right away, in my personal opinion, because it's a long-term investment, not a short-term. So we'll see what happens with that. But that was definitely some news that we saw, and we saw pictures and videos of him being on the field for mandatory OTAs, and that was very shocking. We didn't expect to see him till at least training camp.
Are you concerned with compensation?
No.
So like for example, if you have an injury that you're recovering from, what are the as an example? I got a bunch of people that I work with that have gone through hip replacements and whatnot. And so what you end up with a lot of the times is if you don't replace both hips almost at the same time.
Oh, you mean overcompensation?
Like you compensate for the injury.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Hey, like my leg is not really 100%, so I'm gonna kind of maybe lean a little bit more on the right rather than the left, or or if my normal way in which I backpedal, like because he's obviously as a DB,
right?
I lean left and I put my pressure on my left knee. Well, if his left knee is the one that got hurt, for example, he might be then switching it up. His body's not used to backpedaling, starting with his right, and maybe he twists it or does something funky with it because he's just doing something he's not used to.
Well, I mean, that goes for anybody that has a leg injury. You just really don't know, right? That's why I say it's better to take your time and get strong as you possibly can in both facets, so you don't re-injure it. I think guys that rush back off ACLs and meniscus tears and things of that nature, they rush back and that leg isn't as strong as they think it is. And you get to the point where you overcompensate and you hurt the other leg because of what? You wasn't fully invested or fully confident in the idea of that leg being strong, and you lean too much on your other leg and you hurt that one. So right. I think time will be his best friend in recovering from that injury. Like I said, it happened October-ish last year. So he's about 8-9 months out from that injury. So so I think he just take it slow. I mean, I think we'll be fine in the secondary. I think that'll also allow for our second year guys, your Deshaun Taylors and your Dean Leonards, to get I guess you can say meaningful and needed reps.
Yes.
And helping their development. So that can benefit us in the long run, especially since it's still all season. So that'll aid in their development. I think that's where I'm driving at.
Agreed.
So we'll see how that thing shakes out. Another nice added return that we saw, Mike Williams on the field. He wasn't on the field present for voluntary OTAs, but he was there for mandatory, and he was actually on the field catching passes and running routes and doing one-on-ones. So that was definitely something that was
Mike who?
Right, Mike Dub. Mike Jones. So but yeah, he was on the field. So definitely look, bright spot for the team as far as having him on the field and ready to go. People kind of question whether or not he was still hurt about that back injury that he suffered at the end of the end of the season, that he was going to be there early. But he's there, he's healthy, and he's at the podium talking to the media, doing all the good things that we like to see. So that was a positive aspect of it as well. So that was good. I guess you can say a melancholy moment was Austin Eckler. He's been questioned vehemently about his contract, although they've ironed out the idea that he's going to get his incentives and up his overall salary with meeting those incentives and give them the money he's comfortable enough with to finish out his contract with the Chargers. But a lot of people kind of reading between the tea leaves and saying that he's still a sticking point for him that he doesn't have a long-term deal. So we'll monitor that situation. He hasn't said anything negative. A little bit. Some people, I guess you can say, interpret it as being cryptic. But to me, it was just him answering the questions.
He might be a little salty.
I mean,
there might be a little salty undertone to it. I blame him.
I even saw a post today where Jonathan Taylor's worried because he's due for a contract here soon, and he's one of the best backs in the league, and he's one of the few. I was actually talking to Coach Crit about this the other day about the idea of bell cow backs being a thing of the past, and it's like maybe like 4 or 5. You count on one hand how many bell cow running backs there are, and he's
they
one
all
of them.
Fizzle out after their
first contract,
second deal.
They all fizzle out after the second year.
I guess
they signed.
I think maybe the only one that didn't would be Zeke, but that's his. No,
Zeke did. Shorter. Zeke did. I think Derrick Henry's the only one.
Derrick Henry's the only one that did not
Zeke got another extension, didn't he?
No.
They restructured it. They didn't get an extension. They restructured it.
But you look at McCaffrey, signed a huge deal. then like played 4 games for the Panthers, and then they
Got hurt
traded
and
him.
they traded.
You look at
Right.
Le'Veon Bell, like
Oh,
he
well,
was a true bell cow. Like who would have thought before the holdout stuff, like that dude was a baller.
he was
And then he just
A1.
it's gone, you know?
Yeah.
Like I mean, the shelf life of a running back is so short, and it I think seems to be even shorter, you know, as the success like comes early.
I
Like
mean, we always say
right?
it. Yeah, we always say it. It's a passing league. So, you know, if you probably make more money and have more pull from a contract perspective when you're a dual threat. When you're more of a third down receiving threat and can line up outside. That's why you see Travis Etienne and guys like that when they go to camp. Jahmyr Gibbs now. You see him line up, they say, well, why is he playing wide receiver a lot? Because that's what they want to utilize him as another threat in the pass game. You know, it's not about handing the ball 30 times a game and letting him run downhill. They want to be able to create mismatches.
When you look to it at like QB and receiver, especially in the NFL, are like highly protected positions. Like you kind of, for the most part, like you know you're going to get an opportunity to do what you need to do at that position without just getting like leveled, you know. And it's like running backs, the only two are like, don't spear them, you know, don't put your head, don't target them.
Don't target them. That's it. Yeah, no helmet to helmet. That's all we got. That's all we got.
Well, that's not even true.
They got to do.
That's not even true. It's like as long as you don't spear them with your helmet, but you know,
as long as it's not grossly bad, and as long as it's not grossly bad, and we got to do an official review and it gets replayed.
Right, there you go. There you go.
Have at it. It's like, and then they're like, "Oh, dude, you know, this is your 3rd year. You've taken."
Exactly.
Here's the hits we estimated. Like we're good.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, with the plethora of running backs coming in each year, you know, the underrated guys are going to come in this year and they're going to show out, I believe. You know, so it's rough. I mean, it's rough ask. I mean, it's you're just in a bad time in a bad space where the league is pivoting and your position is being devalued. When 10 years ago, people wouldn't question whether or not Jonathan Taylor's going to get paid.
Yeah. No. Yeah. He would have gotten paid already. Like
exactly.
A lot.
Paid him early. I mean, and, early and a lot. Right.
And then you look at like how some other teams, like both Eagles, Chiefs, right, make the Super Bowl, and both are like heavy platoon players. You know, platoon running backs. Like both of like almost, you know, aren't known for aren't known for a bell cow guy. But then you go look at the teams that are centered around one person, and it's like, you know, like the Panthers with McCaffrey ended up moving on. You know, Tennessee's probably the only successful one, and it's like, is it that successful though? Like,
right? I mean, there's a ceiling there clearly because they can't get over a certain levels and certain humps that they
and then you look at
surpass.
Minnesota, right? They were 13-3, as fluky as it might have been. Still 13-3 and made the playoffs, and then they're just like, you know, we'll get rid of Dalvin Cook.
Right, we don't really need him.
Dude is surefire to score 12 touchdowns a year.
Easy.
And they're like, hey, you know, we don't need that.
But the problem was it was a Melvin Gordon, Austin Eckler situation all over again, because Madison came in and said, oh, I'll take cheaper money. I'll take less money, thinking he's going to be a backup or share carries. Now thinking they were thinking about moving on from Dalvin, and all of a sudden now he's right in an RB1 role with a light contract. You know, so because Austin did the same thing. He signed for it was about, you know, $4 to $5 million a year, and Melvin Gordon was asking for 10. It was like, bye.
Yeah,
see ya.
Look what happened.
Exactly. So that's one of those things where you honestly have to just take what you can get, in a sense. I hate to say that because I mean, football is not a sport where you know, it's not typing, it's not badminton, it's not basket weaving. So you need to be paid and compensated heavily for what you do, because there's a lot of work involved and you're putting your body on the line, your life on the line in certain aspects. So you need to be heavily compensated. But when you think about the grand scheme of things,
as running back though, you got to just be grateful for a second.
Right, you get second deal. I made my money.
Hey, matter
of fact, maybe I want to convert to wide receiver. Like I just be a slot. Let me line up, be a slot receiver. You know, that's kind of what Deebo Samuel did. They was lining him up in the backfield. He's like, well, if you're gonna pay me like, you know, a dual threat guy, I need to, you know, if you use me as a dual threat guy, pay me like one. You know, but you know, he was a wide receiver. You know, then he was kind of a pseudo running back, but Yeah, it's a rough ask to be a pure running back and get big dollars nowadays. It's a tough ask. So
I mean, how you look at like Zeke, right? Zeke and Fournette, and I mean even Cook.
they
like
still out there. They still on the
just
market. They
lingering.
still,
You know,
just
like I
wait,
get the Fournette and
waiting
Zeke,
for an
but
injury.
I would not have imagined Dalvin Cook would have lasted a weekend as a free agent.
I agree.
Wow.
I agree.
But
Wow.
I even made my little pledge this, for the Chargers to sign him. But what I really wanted for them to do is trade for him because he had 3 years left on his deal. So and the fact that the Vikings were going to be paying the guaranteed money in that deal, I was all for it. Because it was going to be like from a contract perspective for us for the next 3 years, and we could let him and Austin share carries for 1 year. Then all of a sudden he'd be the number one guy for the next 2. But now he's a free agent. We back to square one. So
he's probably going to want like a fat deal.
He's going to want exactly what Austin wants or more. Yeah. So we'll see. Like I said, we'll monitor the Austin situation, and we'll see. I think that you have to monitor the Isaiah Spiller progression and the Josh Kelly progression because Josh Kelly's due for a contract. So I'm sure he's itching to produce for either a new contract from the Chargers or somebody else. Coming along, I think they picked him up to be a serviceable back and maybe be the future. He's the kid's only 21 years old, so he got a lot, a tread left on those tires. So I think that it just depends on what avenue they want to go through. But I'll tell you one thing about the offense. I'm kind of jump ahead a little bit about the OTAs is that who seems to be the happiest about Kellen Moore's new offense is the offensive line and the receivers. Because it's a very simplistic scheme blocking wise, and the receivers love the nuances and the dynamic route tree that Kellen Moore is implementing. So, So I would say I'm not going to sit and say that we're going to be, a heavy passing team, but I think it's leaning towards that. So the idea of us being, a 20 or 30, carry per person or number one back team is probably not going to happen. in all honesty, but we'll see. So, but if I'm the guys in the house, I try to make my money in the pass game in those intermediate and those short routes,
right?
And try to create yak in that offense because it seems like Kellen wants to air it out, in my personal opinion.
Well, that's what you guys spent most of your money on, right? Like invested in receivers.
Oh yeah, it's heavy. It's heavy. We drafted a number one receiver, or first round receiver. We got 2 that make it $20 million a year.
And so, you got Herbert, so
right. So who has a howitzer for an arm? So So another interesting thing about him is that I noticed that they changed his throwing motion a tad bit. He's throwing more over the top now because of all those batted passes he had last year. Despite being 6'6", he had more batted balls than they really wanted him to have in the season. So he changed his throwing motion a little bit, so that should allow for him to get the ball over the offensive line much more easier into his target. So we'll see how that change plays out. But a couple of notes from other people that kind of are shining right now in camp. Quentin Johnson is been on the news. Several clips we've seen on Twitter and other avenues that for Chargers media. He seems to be picking up really offense really well, and he's making a lot of highlight reel catches on air. So again, it's take that for what it's worth, grain of salt or whatever have you, because it's not until you get somebody in front of you is when it really matters, right? But he looks good, in practice. Or what do you call a dress rehearsal? He looks good in dress rehearsal. So that's a good sign. Anybody that's a rookie, if they show early signs of picking up things really fast and they're fast learners, that's typically a good sign, just from a mental perspective. And ironically, a lot of people kind of scoff at this particular aspect of it, but Kenneth Murray seems to be benefiting from Eric Kendricks being in the room because he's showing a lot of progression in his reads and his reactions. So he's playing for a contract too because they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. So he's either playing for a contract going forward with the Chargers or playing for a contract with somebody else. So he's on a contract year. Him and Josh Kelly, I expect big things out of them when they're on the field because they're playing for their next deals. So we'll see how things shake out there. But overall, that's pretty much where we land as far as the OTAs are concerned. Like I said, JC and Mike came back. Austin at the podium was, a little awkward. Quentin Johnson picking up the offense and Kenneth Murray showing life, and that everybody seems to be happy with the Kellen Moore offense so far.
I think you guys are in a super interesting spot right now with the Chargers. What my concern with the Chargers is your core offensive weapons are older and or oft injured, as you guys were last year. Do you have similar concerns that you only have the one young wide receiver that can fill in for that style?
Well, no, we have three. We have a slot that we drafted in Darius Davis. We have Quentin Johnson, and we have Josh Palmer. And Josh Palmer's more of an outside. He's 6'3".
Yeah.
He's more of an outside guy. So he's more of a Keenan Allen mold. So yeah, and I think that because of his speed and his I guess you could say contested catch ability, Quentin Johnson more so fits the Mike Williams role. And with Jalen Guyton still being there, working his way back from his ACL, and Darius Davis coming into the fold, Josh Palmer being the third string right now, and ironically, the emergence of Keelan Doss. They've been talking about Keelan Doss in OTAs a lot.
Ooh.
So he may make the roster finally.
So Raider guy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Hard
So
knock.
they've been speaking his praises. So if he makes the roster, then I would think
Knock
that
3 times if you're with me.
right. Right. So yeah, so I think the depth right now is pretty solid. We don't really know truly what the 53 is going to shake out to be, but I think they learned their lesson from last year and really realizing they need to keep receivers in the room.
Sorry, Alex, go ahead.
Well, maybe I'm wrong, but as the AFC West fan watching the draft, I saw that the Quentin Johnson pick is looking last year, right? There were times where you either didn't have Mike Williams or didn't have Keenan Allen, or maybe there was a game or two you didn't have both. But, I saw the Quentin Johnson pick as your stopgap to fix that problem should that come up this season, but also giving Herbert a younger Keenan Allen to, kind of go into his second contract with. I mean, is that pretty accurate, or is he a different type of receiver than that?
You know what? To be honest with you, I don't put a lot of stock in him being an elite route runner like Keenan just yet. I mean, that's a learning skill, especially when it comes to running routes in the college versus running routes in the league. Yeah. But I think it's a little bit of both. I think to be honest with you, I think he's faster than both.
Keenan Allen's slow as hell.
Yeah, well,
we call him wheelchair.
Right. The short area burst is great. He might not beat you in a straight line run, but his short area burst and his short area quickness is really refined even at his age. So one of the better route runners in the league. So I think that and it's a good thing for Quentin to be under him to kind of learn from both. Like I can learn how to make my one-on-ones with Mike, and I can learn how to run routes from Keenan. So I think he's a little bit of both. Like I still have some trepidation about the Jose Flowers pick because I still feel like that's gonna be a slam dunk. And looking at him on the Ravens, I just oh man, watch. I think we're gonna rue the day that we didn't pick him up. But I think if Quentin is solid and he can produce and be the number one guy going forward, and like you said, and it just might be one of those things where it might be a thing where Justin really likes tall receivers. He just might prefer it. I just think that might be a thing. You got a 6'3" guy on one side, 6'5" guy on another side, 6'4.5", guy on another side. He got 6'6" tight end, 6'8" tight end in Parham. So he might like tall targets. He just might like tall targets. Yeah, he might be. He might be. So that might be why.
Talking about.
Right. If you're under 6'2", we can't talk.
You already gave the Eckler. Come on.
Right. So unless you're a running back, we can't discuss you getting the ball from me if you're under 6 foot. But yeah, so it could be one of those things, but I think that might be the deal breaker. I won't call it a deal breaker. I'll call it, say, the decision-making aspect of it. Do you pick Zay or do you pick Quentin? But Herbert prefers tall receivers, so we'll go with Quentin. So that might be a decided factor.
That's an interesting one because that's obviously one of the things that, obviously Herbert is going nowhere.
No.
Like ever. Like you would have to, that would be probably the single worst mistake your franchise could make.
If they never got rid of Phillip Rivers, they're never getting rid of Herbert.
Right, but I give you one better than that. They asked him about him holding in potentially in training camp because new deal hadn't been done, and he said that, and that Chargers Twitter was all over this. We were salivating over this. The fact that he said that when training camp starts, your quarterback's job is to be on the field and be with his team and lead his team. So this guy loves football. He loves football, and he'll let the business aspect of it take care of itself. But I think the fact that he's a Chargers fan growing up, he loves to play football. He loves being on the field and being a leader on the field.
Wait,
that
he was a Chargers fan?
Yeah, was a kid. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah,
So,
that's like, you got a lock there, basically.
yeah. So I don't have any trepidation with him leaving at all. Like, I'm not concerned about it. Like, if something drastic would have to happen, we have to sell the team, and some tyrant owner comes in and says we want a whole new staff and a whole new squad, for him to not be a Charger. That something crazy like that. So outside of that, yeah, I'm not worried about him leaving at all.
I do agree with your concerns. Is Herbert has, at least for now and for the foreseeable future, a very, very big arm, and he has a pretty accurate arm at that as well. And so one of the things that Mahomes, for example, was able to do with the Tyreek Hill and some of the other speedy guys that Reed kind of brought in, kind of pulling a page out of the Al Davis playbook, which is, if you can run fast, yes, please. Whereas, Tyreek Hill and some of the other speed receivers, McCole Hardman, those types of guys, we got a quarterback that can throw it that far, so we don't care how fast you are because you're getting the ball one way or another. And I guess my only concern with Kellen Moore is, will his offense be limited because you don't have a true deep threat? And will teams, as the season goes on, kind of be able to pull what a lot of other teams do with some other kind of, I don't want to call it one-dimensional, but I certainly want to call it less threatening when it comes to deep threats because of the skill sets that your team has. Height over speed, as an example, or height and size over speed, as an example.
Well, that's the interesting you say that, because I think it's not the traditional or sexy way of doing things, but I think it'll be interesting to see how Kellen Moore deploys his receiving core. Because like you said, you have your outside guys, although Keenan can't play the slot, he's not a slot that's going to take the top off, right? He's going to be more of a possession guy, move the chains guy in the middle of the field when he plays slot. However, I do think, if they deploy your Quentin Johnson on the field with those two, or if they put Darius Davis or Jalen Guyton out there with them, you have a legit 2-4-3 guys and 1-4-4 guy in the slot potentially, especially if you go 5 wide, who can take the top off. So I think that the idea of us having the prototypical slow possession receiver, depending on what Kellen wants to do with those guys, could be a thing of the past. So, he can take advantage of that speed, that straight line speed that we have in house, because I'm sure those guys will make the roster. I'm not even going to question that. So you got speed in house, just how you use it, and if although Mike Williams is not a short area burst guy, he is a strider. He did run sub 4.4 in the 40 when he was at the combine. He might not run a great 3-cone or great shuttle, but he can still run straight line, and he has a 6-4-foot stride. So if you let him run with you and you just one-on-one with him in the contested area of the field, 30 yards, 40 yards down the field, that's a catch. So yeah, I think that the offense will look different. I think we have the ability to stretch the field more so now with the people we have now than we did last year.
I think that's a fair response. You guys do have some certainly faster guys than you did last season.
Agreed.
Now the question is, how polished will their routes be? Will they take the next step in the offense? Will they hold on and take off with the new offense? In fairness, there are those questions. Like, those are legitimate questions when you implement a new offense with a new coach. Mm-hmm. Not so different than the Broncos. We got Sean Payton. How will in fairness, I think Sean Payton has 3 of every type of wide receiver on our roster right now.
Yeah, you have definitely a diverse group.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's almost embarrassing in terms of where the Broncos are at in terms of their wide receiver room. It's like, if you need
you have to say it right, Richie. It's an embarrassment of riches.
Yes,
let's not sully it, okay? It's an embarrassment of riches, okay?
Not a bad problem to have.
Not at all. Not at all.
No, and even our 5th and 6th and 7th guy at the wide receiver position
can run.
Jalen Virgil runs a 4.3.
Man,
Everyone runs a 4-3 now.
But he scored
not
a touchdown.
everyone.
And he scored a touchdown in regular season against a legit offense last season. So like the whole point is he's our wide receiver 7. Like that's silly.
That goes back to my point about how Sean deploys his offense, because he has the weaponry. That's not the issue. It's just a matter of what you're going to do with it.
He's
Having an embarrassment of riches. What do you say?
I said he's about to turn Cortland Sutton into Michael Thomas. He's going to be a new slant boy.
Somebody.
Slant boy.
Slant boy, slant boy. Yeah, that's me.
Slant boy.
It is funny. It is funny you mentioned that, Alex, because it came out this past week that Sutton's homework, quite literally, and I'm not even joking, was to study Michael Thomas.
Yeah, I figured that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like kind of similar body style receivers. So
yeah.
I mean, you
I would
gotta
argue
imagine
Sutton's bigger. Sutton's bigger.
Sutton's a big dude.
Yeah.
He is a big boy. Yeah, he's got.
Well, he might be even a little more athletic than Michael Thomas.
Yeah, I mean,
certainly now.
I mean, right.
Absolutely, right now.
After all the injuries, definitely now.
Basically, Darth Thomas at this point, probably.
Well, Michael Thomas was always very slim.
No legs. Mechanical legs.
Yeah.
Right.
Darth Thomas. I think that's
Darth Thomas.
That's funny. That's funny.
I hate you. I hate you.
He's got like a picture of Sean Payton in his room.
I hate you. Right.
You ruined everything.
That's funny.
Sorry.
Sorry, Star Wars rant. So we apologize.
I could tell. So I think that's actually an interesting transition where I can start breaking down the Broncos OTAs because we kind of segued over to Cortland Sutton, who is he's a big dude. Like if you actually see him, he's a large human.
You don't got to tell us. We watched the guy for 4 years.
I know.
and one avenue or another, whoever threw the ball, it was an issue.
I think the only guy larger than Sutton is Tim Patrick.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, I know, right?
He is literally, I think, my favorite Bronco right now. And I saw his presser. I don't know if you guys saw it. He was hilarious. He's great. They asked him what one of his motivations was to come back and train as hard as he did to get back on the field this early from his injury. No, he said, I really missed football. He goes, my little girl at home and my wife just can't be spoken to the same way that my teammates can.
How about that? How about
that? And he said, so he goes, there's just some things you can't replace about being on a football field. And that is most definitely one of them. And so, and also it came out that when he broke his leg back, and I think it was like 2014, 2015 or 2016, I think somewhere in that range, he kind of knew, like he has got a game plan. He's got a direct path in terms of what he knows he needs to do to come back from a lower body injury. So he knew that, hard work, perseverance, etc., was going to get him back on the field. So, and he is easily probably my favorite Bronco right now on the roster, just because of his playing style. He always wins. And he doesn't ever seem to drop the ball. Like he just catches it. Anyways, moving on to kind of where the Broncos OTAs were. 3 names to throw out there that have kind of come up through various avenues. Caden Stearns. That is a name that, as opponents of the Denver Broncos, you ought remember. And it's just, I think this is going to be a year you're going to start seeing him become that clear-cut starter. And Clayton, I appreciate you joining.
Does he play?
Pardon me? He's a safety. Safety. Go ahead and follow what Clayton's done here.
I gotta know who Travis Kelce's gonna touch.
Oh boy, here we go. He's the one that richly favors over Justin Simmons. We've had that talk already.
I do.
He favors Caden Stearns over Justin Simmons.
I do. No, and I mean that. I mean,
Oh,
dead
I
serious.
know you're not kidding.
Yeah, yeah. No, like I this is like straight face.
Justin
Yeah.
Simmons is too expensive now. He's out. We don't want.
So what I would like to see from Stearns is I want to see him healthy for the remainder of the season, and I'd like to see him continue his play style that we saw from him prior to his injury last season and even the season before. And I think that he can easily fill into that starting role without having to make much more progression. He just needs to stay on the field. In my opinion, he is that good. And we absolutely hit the ball out the park when we picked him up in the draft. Taking a look at another guy who was one of those edge rusher outside linebacker guys that we picked up really late in the draft, the year we drafted him, and Jonathan Cooper. Jonathan Cooper was always meant to be drafted higher. Christopher Allen, as an example, who is an outside linebacker, which a lot of Broncos fans, keep on forgetting about, is another guy that we picked up as a flyer last year because of injury. He was slated as a second-round pick. I always thought that Allen was going to be a guy that would be getting a lot more press time this season. Cooper was kind of that guy a few years ago for us, who ought to have been picked higher and really showed out to be a great option for us and has made slow progressions throughout his career as he's earned playing time. And it's sounding like he has taken a leap, a step forward, and hopefully with a better coaching staff on the roster this year, will further his development and really come into his own. Another one, two guys I will mention at the tight end position that are really getting quite a bit of airtime in terms of discussions. Greg Dulcich and Albert O. And if you think I'm going to pronounce his last name in full, you have another thing coming.
I've heard you say it before, though.
Yeah, that's the one.
Hookah, hugga, monka, fugga.
Yeah. So it's like Okonedu.
Makes you think of Key and Peele.
Yeah.
Right. Hookah, laka, fucka, haka, laka, fucka.
Boston College.
Yeah.
Right, Boston College. Homeschool.
So, Greg Dulcich really came in pretty strong at the end of last season when he came back from his injury and really showed why he was drafted where he was drafted. And I think that's great. In a Sean Payton offense, though, he best learned how to block.
He's about to become Jimmy Graham.
Well, he's got to learn how to block. It's just that simple. He's got to learn how to block because that's why Jimmy Graham was, I don't want to say he was questioned, but he was certainly always treated as a but kind of player because every time he was in the Sean Payton offense, Payton kept on insisting on putting him into a blocking role. And every time he did, Jimmy Graham looked like a fool. I'm sorry, he did.
Yeah.
He looked like an absolute fool. And so anyways, that's an interesting one there. And then Albert O, he's got a really, really interesting kind of blend between athleticism and being able to block. Albert O has actually gotten better at blocking as time has progressed. One of Noah Fant's issues was that Noah Fant had one or two good blocks, but then whiffed on more than he landed. That being said, Fant was certainly a gifted athlete and could run routes and could do all those other things and should not have that taken away from him.
And was the focal point of you getting Russell Wilson, right?
Right, he was.
That part.
Yeah,
that
he
part.
was. So I actually think that keeping Albert O may prove to be a benefit to the Broncos only because I don't think that he's going to pull a tremendous dollar value perhaps from another team.
Nah.
And I think that
he hasn't really done much.
No, and so the whole point is that if he can do really well this year, I think we might be able to retain him as he goes through the contract and maybe re-up him for a reasonable contract value to keep him longer term. Noah Fant had the name, the draft pedigree, all that sort of thing, which I don't think was going to be possible. So there's that.
Well,
Now-
and it's like first round players, right? Even if the team that drafted doesn't want them, someone's gonna like first round players are like gonna get second, third, fourth chances.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because there's a reason
Baker
why they were,
Mayfield.
yeah, like Baker Mayfield,
Yeah.
exactly.
Sam Darnold.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know, and really any of them.
yes.
I think the only one that's still not around is Josh Rosen.
We don't
That
want to be
tells you
wrong.
Josh Rosen was that bad.
They're right.
Yeah,
he
yeah,
was
right.
out after like 1 year.
Right.
But he's so cerebral.
Yeah.
It just
So
doesn't translate.
I
It
just-
just doesn't translate.
I wish I could be a fly on the wall for like his first snaps when they're like, oh shit. Oh God. Like,
Damn
this
it.
guy's not legit. He
Right.
messed up.
Could you imagine like the second or third game in, and then the GM and the owner, everyone just looking,
There's
we
like
gotta
the
draft.
kid,
Nope, yeah, we gotta draft the new one.
the kid just doesn't
yeah.
get it. He
Yeah.
just doesn't get it.
Yeah,
Doesn't get it.
yeah.
And then he said, like, yeah, well, there's 10 teams that made a mistake.
Now
Oh man. Yeah.
I'm gonna link 3 players together here with this comment, and so you guys might recall that this past week the Denver Broncos signed Mr. Clark, preferably without guns.
Uzi Clark, baby.
Would be my preference. However,
You got the John Moran of basketball or
Yep.
football.
yep. But
I must have missed that one. He had an incident with a brandishing a gun. Is that what I'm?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
he just had some guns. He had some Uzis on him.
yeah,
Oh.
just a
okay.
couple,
Just a
but for good
Okay.
measure.
It was
But
light work.
Light work.
yeah,
Okay. I have to look that one up. I didn't know that one.
yeah. But
It was like an off-season thing that
Yeah,
yeah.
for like
yeah,
a year
it was.
and a
I think
half.
it was underneath his car seat or in the back, underneath the back of the back seat or something. He had like,
Yeah.
it was just not great. But he's a good player. Played well for the Chiefs. Like you were saying, actually 2 shows in a row, Alex. One of the best postseason records ever.
Yeah.
In terms of sacks, which I think is huge. But on that note, we have 2 players, both at the same position, that have both not looked great in OTA so far by all accounts. One of them is Nick Benito, who was our top pick in last year's draft.
Really?
And the other one is Baron Browning, who has basically already been announced that he is not healthy enough to even start the season on the active roster and will be put on PUP. We haven't even started. Like, we just got things going, right? And he's like, oh, wave the white flag.
He popped off the coach, telling you.
Yeah. So
it's crazy though, because I just saw the article. Granted, it's Bleacher Report, right? And they just throw shit out there. But
oh yeah.
talking about Danielle Hunter,
yeah.
trade packages, and had Denver with one, including Baron Browning, for him. So I didn't realize he was.
I'm not going to be surprised, depending on how the Broncos and where we're at this season, if we package a guy to get a guy or do something along those lines. Because
got assets. All them receivers you got in there, between those and the guys that just aren't panning out, you can ship them up, ship them out.
So I could totally see some stuff like that. And the number one, I think, Bronco surprise. I have 2 of them. One of them is Tim Patrick being as healthy as he is, being able to run routes the way he is right now. I expected him to be good. I didn't expect him to be quite where he's at right now. He is cutting and planting on his leg. Now
he's doing what JC Jackson's doing. Okay.
Yeah. But except I don't know if JC was doing. I have to look at the JC's film. I didn't get a chance to before the show, but I mean, Tim Patrick is with a brace on, absolutely just heavy planting on his repaired knee.
Yeah, that same thing that JC was doing. He was cutting, doing W drills and everything.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do though when you start.
Yeah.
All that back.
So it looks like he is doing exactly what JC's doing, which is remarkable. Although, and I think they both injured it in and around the same time. So they seem to have very similar trajectories, which is great to see. But the number one surprise is Javonte Williams. The fact that he is even running and or walking with a brace and participating in any drills at this point.
That's amazing.
I mean, that's a freaking miracle as far as I'm concerned. He literally tore absolutely everything in his knee. Like as in anything that ends in an L has been torn.
Right. If it's the ligament or a tendon, it was gone.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So
name's a seal, sir.
Yeah, it's like when I broke my leg, the doctor came to me and goes, so there's a technical term for this, and then there's what you actually did. You shattered your leg. And he said, there's a whole medical thing that I can list off, but you shattered your leg. Congratulations. And
congratulations, though. Wow.
Yeah, that's what he said. Congratulations. And he goes, you got to go for your second surgery.
Mm.
And so there must have been a note in my file that I'm sarcastic by nature. Because that's
just doctors, man. I think that's just orthopedic guys.
The orthopedic guys are great. Oh, I love them. Yeah. Those guys are my people.
I remember my ACL. He was like, okay, well, you dislocated, or no, he's like, you partially tore your MCL, which will heal on its own. So that's like a month. And I was like, okay, tight. And then he just like paused. He just looked at me and was nodding. He's like, well, you totally blew out your ACL. You're out for at least like a year. And I was like, damn, dude.
Wow.
Like,
right, yeah. Like, can you lead with that?
Yeah.
Can you lead with that next time?
But I was just like, that's probably like his sick little humor for the day.
Oh yeah.
Just doing that to people, you know.
Yeah, they have an elective course in medical school. This sarcastic.
Yeah, sarcastic humor.
Sarcastic humor.
Sarcastic delivery.
There you go. There you
go. Well, the only thing that killed me is that there's this dude that was wailing in front of me, and he had nothing but like a sprained wrist. And he was like 45, like a grown man, just crying. And the doctor said, it's not even broken, just go home. And it was really upsetting to me that the doctor didn't like insult him, because I really wanted to, because I had to listen to his whining the entire time.
That part. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
I thought there were no insults in Canada. You guys are just like overly nice to everyone.
Like there's no crying in baseball.
Hello.
So
that would be lovely.
Yeah, I guess I'm not your typical Canadian, which is why I get along so well with most Americans. But I love it in the U.S. It's easily my favorite country, and that includes my own. So, I mean, with regards to Broncos, I think we have an interesting roster. For those of you who are watching from other teams, I do think the one thing to look out for in OTAs, as we've now wrapped them up, but as we start going into all the mini camps and all that sort of thing, is how the one thing that has not been reported on is how is the offensive line looking? Because it is one of the weaker areas on the Broncos roster. We have holes at both not just starting positions, but we also have holes and we'll call it not great depth in other areas of that offensive line. So we can ill afford injury, and even our starters are not spectacular because we just have not put the true capital needed into that offensive line and into those core and key starting positions, in my opinion. And frankly, when you look at our record and how we performed in certain areas and as the season's gone on, I think my opinion has kind of been bolstered with the facts on the field, given the fact we haven't done particularly well as the years have gone on. And when you look at teams like the Kansas City Chiefs and, dare I say, the Chargers, who have also invested very heavily and well into their offensive line, your issue as the Chargers was not actually, despite the fact you had massive injuries at your offensive line, they actually held up very well because you had very good depth. Right.
Yeah, and they doubled down on it. They doubled down on it this year. They're picking up another one in the draft.
I know.
And a UDFA.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I know, but that's what I'm saying is for the issues you guys had, I'm talking Chargers, so you coach here, major issues for all you had, offensive line was not one of them.
That's a fact.
I'm sorry, it was not one of them.
That's a fact.
No, even losing
that was one of them. but not
even
not
losing
your
your
offensive
top 10 pick left tackle and pumping in a 6th rounder or something, wasn't he?
Wasn't all that drop off. Yeah, wasn't all that drop off.
Totally fine.
Yep, and now they kicked him inside the guard where he's happy.
And you got Zion. He was
Zion, Corey Lindsey, Slater, obviously Pipkin. Yeah.
Yep. So the main thing with surgery, guys, having gone through enough surgeries and gone through enough injuries in my career and life thus far, it's not just the surgery. It's the fact that surgery keeps you out from training and being able to lift properly, cardio, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And when you're in a contact collision sport, to quote Shannon Sharp, one of the main reasons why a lot of football players get hurt is because they take a break. For example, someone like Le'Veon Bell from getting hit, and your body learns how to absorb hits. It learns how to absorb and take punishment.
It's called callousing.
Yes, exactly. And so the problem is that when you're out for that block of time, a lot of these guys come back, play for 2-3 weeks, and get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so we really do need to be very mindful and careful about that. And again, history's on my side for making a comment like that. And trust me, and I like Baron Browning, like a lot. But you can't help but look at kind of the order of things and how things have played out and just simply look at that and say you have to be somewhat concerned. Right? You have to. And on top of that, Nick Bonito, your kind of heir apparent to kind of backfill into that position group, is apparently not looking great, which then takes what would have otherwise been a reasonably deep room or a decent room and would then kind of leave you with some room to go, with some kind of concerns, if you will, even with the addition of Clark. Because you want those guys to rotate in until you actually know who meshes with who and who your true starters are. And even with the other starters, with Gregory, for example, he's often injured as well.
Yeah.
Right. So you really do need to, look at kind of everything from a large picture and big picture there and say, now what? Offensive line, I think, is another group that we're going to have to pay attention to. Now, sadly, our Raiders invite wasn't able to make it today, and Captain wasn't able to join. But in terms of rookies, maybe we'll just do a quick zip around the room and maybe talk about one rookie that we really think will be up for praise, if you will, maybe by the end of this season for all of us. Maybe a rookie that we've heard from OTAs or what have you. Coach, kind of going back in reverse order, I'll start with you.
Oh, guys, we looking for from the Raiders perspective?
No, from the Chargers.
What I missed? I missed the line there.
Oh no, we got some Raiders fans that have joined us. I just wanted to give them a little bit of an update that, sadly we don't have a Raiders.
Well, we could say like which Raiders guy we think will be good or something. I mean,
all right.
We can do that in there.
Yeah, we can do that. Sure. Who do you think?
Why not?
Okay. But I was actually looking at that while we were talking. So I still have my eye on, this goes back to my sleeper series that I did pre-draft. I still have my eyes on Jacorian Bennett, especially with them needing help in the secondary. I think Jacorian Bennett is going to be really good. The cornerback out of Maryland. I'd draft him in the 4th round. I think I like his moxie. I like his skill set. I like his physicality at the corner spot. Like she's not shy about anything from just mixing it up with receivers on the outside one-on-ones. So I like Jacorian Bennett. I mean, of course, the flash and dash will be looking at Michael Mayer or Tyree Wilson. But I'm actually interested to see how they deploy Tyree Wilson with Crosby and Jones being in house already. Do they use him as a pass rush specialist only? Do they mix him in on early downs? I mean, how do they truly and honestly deploy him? Because you clearly pay him. You're not taking Max Crosby off the field. We're not even going to argue that. But you paying Chandler Jones big money as well. So likely until he proves otherwise, he can produce for you. He has to be on the field. So what do you do with Tyree Wilson? So I wonder about that. And then, with them picking up 2 solid free agent tight ends, where does Mayer fit? Like, does he come in and beat out OJ Howard and Austin Hooper? You're right. Or is he the 3rd guy in? Don't know. But I think that the fact that I think that Ja'Cory Bennett has the best and most obvious chance to start early based upon their secondary, I guess you could say, room at the moment, and I think he can be a stud for them.
Okay. What about you, Alex?
Oh, you want me to do the Raiders?
Yeah. Who's your pick from the Raiders? I got one.
Well, mine was actually Ja'Cory Bennett as well, but I'm not going to do that because I had pulled up, was like, damn it, he said, because that dude was getting just as much hype as Deonte Banks.
Exactly.
I don't understand why he went 4th round.
There's a lot of questions about that. Yeah.
Big rush on corners, I felt like, in the draft, but I feel like the Raiders always seem to have someone kind of fall into them later that's like, has some sort of issue, but ends up being totally fine. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be, Bennett, especially with the knee, because he's going to be pushed in early and often with what they had in their secondary last year. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of with you on Michael Mayer. Like I know some people in the chat, and I think a lot of the Raider Nation was pretty high on that, but I just don't. I don't see like McDaniels. I don't see him ever really like implementing, outside of Gronk, like tight ends as a big focal point in his offense. Like, and they always seem to have like 2 or 3 options and never use one. Like, 3 years ago, right? The Patriots gave Johnny Smith and
Hunter
Henry like fat money, and then just like didn't use either one.
Right. Right.
Like, like they gave Hooper money and brought him in, and like he's obviously an established guy, and OJ Howard's an athletic freak. That was a 1st round pick, and then you got Mayer, and I think there's just too much, and I wanted to say Tyree Wilson is probably the next in line, just because I think that he's also kind of in that immediate need realm where they got Max Crosby, obviously solidified, edge rush presence and one of the best in the league. But then they spent money on Chandler Jones, and it's, he didn't do. I mean, I read an article. He has like the 3rd worst contract, ranked contract in the league right now. Mm-hmm. And he didn't produce, and I think that's why you saw them take an edge rusher at 7, and I think that they are not going to do that with the mindset of him not getting out there and getting work in early. So I think that he could kind of be more in line to produce, because he's going to be given more opportunities. But I would think Bennett's probably the best one out of all of them to have the best chance at the Raiders.
Yep, that's fair.
So I have 2. I have a Dalton Wagner, who is just an absolute mammoth of a man at the offensive tackle position. I think that they're looking at him as a guy that you can chuck over on the right-hand side, perhaps, of the offensive line as a right tackle. I think they're going to be trying to develop him into kind of that big behemoth, kind of quick twitch run block, kind of develop that part and kind of just lock down that side of the line. Maybe not right away, but certainly as the season progresses. Tackles are one of those position groups that it's a long haul investment. It's a 3-year, now where are they position group. Like it's how it works. But the one thing I have learned from Josh McDaniels is he's actually very good at picking linemen, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And when you look at where the Broncos roster landed, a lot of the linemen that kind of got us into those Super Bowls, many of them were of and from the McDaniels era. And so I think that it's really, really important that we pay attention to the linemen that are drafted. So I think that that's something to kind of keep in mind. And actually, you guys touched on the guy that I have as kind of my 1A, 1B kind of guy, and that's Michael Mayer. I actually think that, again, tight end is a 3-year proposition thing. It is one of the most complex positions to learn at the NFL level. Period. Like, that's it. Full stop. That's it. Because you got to learn pass blocking. You got to learn run blocking. You have to learn route running. You have to learn all of these things in order to be truly effective at the position, and you have to do it at the NFL level. So, guess what, my man? This is no longer college. welcome to the NFL. Best of luck.
Mm.
And so it's a very, very complicated and very complex position. And that's why I think a lot of people undervalue what Gronk was able to do in New England. I mean, he's an athletic freak, which obviously gave him a little bit of an advantage, or a lot of an advantage. But it is such a complicated position to learn. It is such a complicated position to learn that so many people undervalued what he was able to do in such a short period of time when he came into the league. And he picked up on that very complicated offense very quickly. Gronk ain't no dummy.
Yeah, being 6'7" helps too. That's a skill.
Yeah. Being 6'7" and
a strong 6'7", easy 260 pound man. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah,
he's 275.
Yeah.
So again, he is certainly
wasn't that
not
kind of
a
knock
small guy.
with Mayer though, that he showed up to the combine like weighed less than what it said he weighed, like he was like 240.
Really? Didn't know that.
Just when I saw that, but
interesting.
Baby Gronk, yeah. Who's going to tank for Baby Gronk?
Baby Gronk.
But I actually think that
wow, they got Mayer listed at 265, so that's a lot. You said 240. He's listed at 265.
I'm telling you, I swear I saw something that he like came in way. I'm about to just Google this.
That's wild.
I'm just making stuff up.
So Alex, your comments earlier about why did the Raiders go and get two more established tight ends? Well, the short answer is you get two established tight ends to be the guys that you plan on starting and coach up the younger rookies that you have below them.
Yeah. No, I get that.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a complicated position.
I just meant with their presence, I don't know that he's going to put up meaningful stats, in first year.
Yeah, I wouldn't draft him high in fantasy.
249 at the combine.
So if I look at the season on a timeline, I see the other guys kind of filling in that first part of the timeline.
Yeah.
And then as the season goes this way, I think their role shrinks, and in Mayer, you start seeing kind of that kind of takeoff piece. And I think that he's got a legit opportunity.
I said that kind of like graded. I think Dulcich was like injured to start the year.
Yes.
But you definitely saw him come on later in the year. The beginning of the year was like your Albertos and Andrew Beck and Saubert and other people, in the fix of it all. And then as Dulcich came back, you saw that kind of slowly progress. But you wouldn't go look at the stat line from Dulcich's first year and be like, wow, this guy killed it. I mean, he obviously came out and produced well in spots. And that's what I think you're going to see with Michael Mayer in his first year too.
My point is that people are still looking at the Dulcich pick, rightfully so, as a good pickup for the Broncos.
Yeah.
And we're talking.
We're not arguing that.
Yeah.
You debate your mother about that one. We're not arguing that.
Yeah. So my point is that who's going to be meaningful from the Raiders rookies? Who's going to have meaningful snaps? Someone that you're going to say as a rookie they contributed, or they were noticed, or they were important, or they were critical, or something of that nature. And I think that Mayer is much like Dulcich. Like he's not hurt, but I think he's going to be like Dulcich in terms of kind of that bell curve as the year goes on. And I think that by the end of the year, we're going to be saying that was a good pickup.
Yeah.
That's a good pickup. And that's my opinion on him. However, I think from a value perspective, unless Mayer just basically lights the league on fire and people are saying, why wasn't he drafted when they thought he was supposed to be drafted? I think that the guy that's going to be in the most value is that just the mountain of a tackle that I mentioned earlier. He is kicking. Where's his weight again? It was like 340? 320. So he's 6'8" and 320 pounds.
That's a good size.
Big
Yeah.
boy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So he's eaten a few hamburgers in his life.
Maybe one or two.
Yeah. And so he's a very, very large human. And we also have had examples of right tackles or tackles at the league or in the league that are, we'll call it, similarly proportioned. And some of them are seen as some of the best in their position, at least in the top 10 or top 5.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
I think
They're either really good or really bad. There's no in between.
Right.
You either know how to
Yeah,
use
yeah,
their
yeah.
limbs or they
One
don't.
is a spectrum, one other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played with a guy in college that was 6'10" and like could not. He would get like just beat pass rush all the time. You never understood why. You're like, dude, you have a 6'11" wingspan. Like, if you
Use
just
it.
get your hands on this person, they can't do anything to you. And like, but it's just, that's just, if people either harness that ability or don't. And that's why you see like a lot of like, you look at undrafted guys that are picked up and those like linemen that are just like huge, and you're like, well, why the hell not? Then you like they not get drafted, and you go watch and you see, it's a technique thing.
Bend. What most of the problem that these really tall big dudes have, and what makes these really tall big dudes that actually do well so unique, is these tall, massive guys have never really needed to learn technique because they were always so damn big.
They've gotten away with it.
Yeah, they're so damn big all the way through that it's like, dude, I'm just gonna hip check you out of the way.
It's like
whatever.
The tackle that the Saints took last year, Penning from Northern Iowa. Like everyone was huge on him, and I was like, this dude's going to be bad. Oh, yeah. I was like, you watch his one-on-ones at any of his camps, like he goes for what he could get away with when he went against smaller people, where he just like opens his hips and just like manhandles them over, and that's like not good.
Yeah. Trying to wrestle, trying to WWE wrestle him in.
And then what happens? He gets into the league, and they're like, he's talked about as a bust and like not available. And granted, like there's a sour component to it because they traded one of their picks that to get him that ended up being like the 10th overall pick. But like you can see stuff like that. In linemen, especially linemen that go later, it's a technique thing. And then it's like whether if it all kind of clicks when they get into an NFL setting with NFL coaching and they can find to that, and then they're killing it, or they just kind of will stick around for 5 years on practice squads because they're huge
right,
and call it good.
Well, and I think that the guys that really excel as late round draft picks like that are ones that are extraordinarily responsive to coaching.
Yeah.
They come into the league and say, I need to learn, and just do it. And I think those are the guys you see that come in, are average, and all of a sudden, bam, they're, all of a sudden in the discussion as being a legitimate tackle at the NFL after year one. And it's because
look at like Trent Brown.
Yep.
Right?
That's one of the guys I'm talking about. It's like he was good, but he wasn't like, wow. But he's just a mammoth dude. Right.
And then you look at like the other, like the big guys that do get taken early and then it doesn't work out. And it's just like, it's a tougher career for him. Like Mekhi Beckham, right?
Yep.
Who I think of with the Jets. I mean, that was the praise with him. Like, this dude is just massive. And now it's like, well, they could move on from him. Like, they move him around. There's all this other stuff.
I'm very interested to see what happens to him because he dropped like 30 pounds in the offseason. So I'm curious to see how he looks this year.
Yeah, but when he drops 30 pounds, it's much different than when normal people drop 30 pounds.
Well, true.
Did you see your boy?
I mean, go from 350 to 320. That's
yeah.
Did you see your boy DJ Fluker, coach?
I did. He looks like Zeus right now. He's Diesel. Yeah, I don't know if he's ever going to make it back in the league, but he looks Diesel. He looks really DJ Fluker.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, he's a freak of a athlete. He's a freak of a man. Like this, it's a career for you in UFC or bouncing if you don't make it back in the league. Like seriously,
right? Yeah.
Or I mean, if he can even modestly act, he could kind of be that like.
He could be an extra in any football movie.
He's the big dude in all the movies. You know what I mean?
There you go.
Like,
there you go.
He's the guy when the guy walks around the corner and then like runs into his chest.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, that guy.
That
Yeah,
guy.
Good.
yeah, he's
Right.
that guy.
I just had to, I've been monitoring this battle in the chat, and I think it's pretty entertaining.
It's
I had to acknowledge.
it's actually what's kept me kind of, head over to the side and not all the way paying attention to what's going on.
Just keep seeing it
Is the chat battle that's going
Oh,
on right now.
I brought up Cap's stream just so I can see it.
Yeah. So guys, in terms of rookies, we covered the kind of the Raiders perspective from a rookies. Real quick, we'll go through our own teams just quick because I'm sure we can just rhyme someone off. Coach, start with you and we'll go from there real quick.
Oh, I think it's going to be an ultimate splash. And for us, it has the best probability of working is likely Quentin Johnston. I think it's an obvious, and I don't want to call it lazy pick, but I think he's going to be the one, because I think that everybody else is going to be a rotational guy. But I think Quentin Johnston's going to log heavy minutes and heavy I guess you could say plays in the offense come week one, especially. So I think that we might just roll out with him, Keenan, and Mike in the 11 personnel grouping and just see what happens. That kind of thing. So I think Quentin Johnston's going to be the guy. I'm still kind of waiting on what Henley and Thule do, but I think that the obvious pick will be for us to be Quentin Johnston.
Let's get some breaking news.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So I guess I'll go for the Chiefs. I want to say, looking at who they drafted, like kind of in line with yours, right? Like you want to say like Rashid Rice or someone like that, like the wide receiver that was Mahomes' pick to go get. But you also heard me say like an hour ago that notoriously obvious that rookie receivers don't work well in Andy Reid's system, a la Sky Moore and probably a whole laundry list of guys.
Mecole Hardman when he first got there.
Yeah. So, I would say that's probably less likely than not with that one. So I think the biggest one, and it's kind of more of a dark horse guy because he was taking it later on, but Veach up to this point has found to find tremendous value in his later round picks and almost some pretty key role players that you wouldn't normally expect to get. So kind of looking at in terms of team needs and what what they'll need to do going into this year. I think Keandre Coburn, the sixth round defensive tackle out of Texas, is going to end up being one of the few from the class that's probably going to get a lot higher praise out of playing more of a position of need. I would say Justin Ross too, but there's just so many receivers in the fold. Like I think that he's obviously full steam on the offseason hype, and I think that he will get in there and make some good plays. But there's just too many weapons to pass around that I don't think one of these new blood in the receiving room is going to make as huge of an impact as I think someone like Coburn would, given, they only had Chris Jones and Derek Nandi as the two, interior D linemen on contract. Got Coburn. Nandi is a notorious, run stuffing specialist, but does not get used in any sort of passing situation. And Coburn is kind of a player of similar mold, but I think has more of a prowess in terms of rushing the passer. So I think that he has a good opportunity to kind of usurp Nandi's role and even eat out a larger chunk of being out there, in
more
terms
versatile.
of versatile. So I think in the grand scheme of it, you see him kind of take out a larger role than you would normally expect to see from a 6th-round D tackle. And I think looking at the season as a whole, once we get to the finish line of it, wherever that may be, I think you look at him in the grand scheme of it being able to contribute more than a Rashid Rice or a Justin Ross or, one of these other rookies would, because he's in an area that they need more. Like Felix Uzoma would be an awesome guy to say like, yeah, he's going to come in and crush it, have 10 sacks. But, that's not overly realistic and not really what they need. They didn't need George Karlaftis to come in last year and just kill it. They needed him to come in and be a a decent complementary piece. And as long as Chris Jones is still on the roster and a focal point of getting after the quarterback, they only need complementary pieces. So it's not like they need that out of their first round edge rusher. So I think you see, kind of the building blocks they added in later in the draft as being one of the more key contributors in this season.
Watch out for Shamari Connor. I'm telling you.
I like him. I like him too, but I got to see what happens because they got McDuffie, L'Jarius Sneed. I think there's been a lot of kind of swirl rumors going around of maybe moving on from Sneed because he is in a contract year and spent first round capital on McDuffie, who looked the part when he was out there. So I think if they move from Sneed, that's a pretty clear indication that like Connor or some of these younger guys have kind of came in and still been as good as they were last year, or looked as good as they did going into the whole draft evaluation. And, that'll be a pretty big sign of that. But until something like that happens, I think there's too many mouths to feed for him to get significant time back there.
That's fair. Be a bit of a hybrid. I think, he can play safety. He might be that big nickel safety that you might need, and in those exotic packages. So it might be something you can utilize and deploy him in that regard.
Dude's a freak too, but then I look at him. He's kind of similar to like Brian Cook, who they took last year,
right?
Who was kind of like a rotational guy, but that's because they had Justin Reed and Juan Thornhill. Well, Thornhill's gone, so now it's like we'll see. Obviously, Justin Reed's getting in there. He's the kind of leader of the secondary, but you're going to see what they do in terms of. Does Cook kind of get Thornhill's role, or do they kind of divide it between these two? There's was obviously a plan in place with the draft, but I haven't seen enough to know how that's going to play out to say he could be the guy at the end of the year. It'd be sweet, but I mean, he is a freak, and I know Coach was high on him going into the draft, so can't be mad about that.
Yeah. So with regards to the Broncos, I got three names actually, and I'm gonna pick one of the three. But the three names that I have on my radar is so I have JL Skinner, who I believe, while he's listed as a safety, my heart of hearts says that he belongs as an inside linebacker, and I'm gonna stick to that. Because I think
he got the frame for it.
He's got a frame, he's got the speed and the ball ability, and it's a perfect, slow shift that one can make at the NFL level because of how much nickel and dime are played right now.
Agreed.
I'm just sorry, it's just a fact. Like it's just, it just is what it is, right? And so I think that he's a player that. The Broncos could see transition pretty soundly to that inside backer position, play that speed sideline to sideline, cover Kelsey kind of guys. Alex, that's the guy that I envision actually covering Kelsey, who's going to be that. He's going to be the linebacker.
We'll see.
That he can be physical with him. I don't know if he can cover him, but he can be physical with him. I give him that.
And James can't cover him. So
whoa. See, let's not get off the rails here. Yeah, let's not go off the rails here.
See, the thing is it's a combination of height, frame, and speed. And so the tight ends like a Kelsey and some of these other guys that are at that that level. They like to leverage the fact that they're like 5 and 6 inches taller than the DB or linebacker that's covering them. And so when you have a corner or a linebacker or a safety, for example, that is similarly sized in terms of height, maybe they're only 3 inches taller than them rather than 4 or 5. Well,
makes a difference.
I mean, that's huge. I mean, that's a massive, massive difference.
Yeah.
That's the difference in terms of tipping a ball with your fingertips or the middle of your palm.
And in JL like 6'3", 6'4"?
Yeah, he's in that range. Where is he? JL Skinner. He is 6'4" and 220 pounds. 220 pounds.
That's an NFL linebacker.
Yeah. So he's my one guy that I think with a position transition that I think can seriously contribute. I also have Jaleel McLaughlin, running back, who's a speed blend mix guy who I think can kind of fill that offensive Swiss Army knife for Sean Payton, give him all those options we've been talking about all podcast here in terms of pass catching, running the ball, kind of jet sweeps, all those types of things. I think that's a really interesting one. And another one I want to throw out is, well, I think everyone is going to talk about Drew Sanders, 6'5", 233 pounds, stupid versatile as an inside linebacker. The one guy I think is going to show out for the Broncos is Seth Benson. Same position, undrafted.
Okay.
And he kind of covers a wide kind of array, similarly athletic, really by rights ought to have been drafted. So Drew Sanders was the linebacker we drafted, but Benson is an undrafted free agent who is a special teams ace, will likely make the roster as a result of that, fill in that role that maybe a Saubert maybe played on special teams last year, height, size, speed, kind of all kind of fit. But I also think that their inside backer position group is wide open for guys to take starting positions and or get playing time.
Yep. Oh.
I clicked the Wi-Fi and it glitched. I was just checking it, and all of a sudden it just glitched. Okay.
So
not a favorable pause.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So my pick is actually JL Skinner. I think that you have a better hit rate on drafted guys than undrafted guys, despite the Broncos having an absolute unreal track record on undrafted free agents. I actually think that the guy that we need to look at is JL Skinner. I think he ought move to the inside backer spot, and I think he'll turn a lot of heads and have a lot of people saying,
at least a nickel. Like if you want third down nickel, at least during that time frame. Maybe not in the run game, but definitely nickel.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of where his role fits in. I think he makes a lot of big plays, splash plays, those crossers that otherwise go unblocked, and where like the running back or the tight end makes the play. I think he's the type of guy that can make those plays not happen because he's got the speed, the ball hawking ability, and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of where I see his role fitting on the Broncos, and that's why I think he's going to be the most impactful rookie for the Denver Broncos, in my opinion. My honorable mention, though, is the rookie center. I believe his name is Forsyth. I just think that our offensive center is just so bad that like he's just so bad that it's a fifth grader will do better.
Wow.
And it's just so I could see him with some progressions and some steps forward, really filling in that role. So anyways, guys, that covers all the division and the rookies and OTAs. I think it's an exciting time in the division because we're no longer talking positions that are sexy. We're talking about real football positions that matter the most on the team. And I know that that's not what fans love to hear or talk about, but if you're going to be perfectly honest with yourself, those are the positions on your team that matter the most.
Difference makers, yeah.
Yeah, they are. They're the ones that matter the most, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so, ladies and gentlemen, until next week, where we delve into more in the AFC West and have a full complement of hosts to talk about all the teams and all the things and all that stuff, where the West Side is the best side. Like and subscribe, share with all your friends. We will see you next week. Peace!
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go.